Hey guys, I've got 12 more tricks for data engineering with AI and Neovim and integrated terminal, cool stuff for you to inspire you, and also just to show you what data engineering is all about, or at least like an idea of what it's all about and certain things that you'd want to do for data engineering tasks and so on. And I realize data engineering isn't something that everybody has had the opportunity to get experience with, but it really goes into, it's like core for all data things. Like data engineering is at the core of it. So if you want to build machine learning models, you need to do data engineering in order to get the data into the proper format to feed into your models. If you want to do data science, like data exploration stuff, we need the clean data sets. That needs to be available. If you want to see the code for today's video, you can go ahead and get that on GitHub. And you're going to find this repository. I'll link it down in the descriptions, as in Code Season 2, and go into this Neovim AI Data Eng Tricks and find this file called moretricks.md right here. And I'm just going to be running these in this demo notebook. All right, so there's going to be 12 of them. And the very first scenario we're going to consider is that we want to create a basic ETL pipeline. What says data engineering like ETL pipeline? All right, so let's grab some code, and we're going to start from this, make this a little bigger for you guys. So here's the demonstration, and I'm going to throw an example of what our data set looks like. It's really important to provide the context of data for language models, because otherwise they're not going to know like what to do with your data. Every data set looks different. So I'm giving it a little bit of an example about what my data set looks like. And in this case, we want to move data into a target database. We want to load a CSV file like this and push it into a database, a SQLite database. And I'm just going to throw that in here, that information in here. But otherwise, we don't have any more code, and we're going to get AI to do this for us. So I have the code right here to go ahead and run this, and I'm just going to select everything, and I'm going to edit it, and I'll paste that in. So generate an ETL pipeline in Python using pandas and SQL, and read this CSV file and load it into this database. Let's see what it cooks up for us. So it's edited our code in place, which means it's destroyed the previous stuff that we had here. But it does seem like it's provided us what we want. So with Neovim, I can press U just to undo that because I want to copy this stuff. So I'll yank it. Now I'll redo that, and I'm just going to paste that stuff back in so that we kind of have that context still. Now DB URL was retained, so we don't need that. And then ETL pipeline would have been rewritten, so we don't need that either, but I guess I just wanted to keep this data set context. In any case, we seem to be creating this engine and stuff like that, so this is all looking pretty good. One thing I might want is some requirements for this file, but it looks like pretty straightforward, SQL Alchemy and pandas. So yeah, I'd be pretty happy with this result as is. Let's go to the next example. All right, so I saved that to demo 1, so you can find that if you want to look at the source code, and I'm going to wipe out this demo so we can reuse it. The next example is optimizing SQL queries. So actually I'll create one called query.sql, and we'll go ahead and work in there. So let's copy this SQL query here, and what we're going to do is run some AI stuff to try and automate this. Optimize this. So what we're doing is we have a username, an order ID, and we're calculating the total price for all of these users and for all of these orders. But it's tricky because we're using a bunch of different tables. So this is going to be some kind of like star schema or like a data warehouse deal where you've got these orders, you've got order items, you've got a fact table, and you've got dimension tables. That's how this is working here. So it's doing a bunch of joins, and we're also doing some grouping and a price. So let's see if we can optimize this. I'm going to say optimize this query, and I'm going to say what? For performance by suggesting indexes or query rewrites. Let's say indexes and query rewrites. And for the indexes, I'll say include this info as a comment inline, let's say. So it's done some work for us. It's sort of doing some nested stuff. So we're doing our joins in this kind of little nested area. There's a having clause that's been introduced. We're grouping by at an earlier step, it looks like. And I'm doing an order by at the end. So if I just hop back to what we had, this was definitely a lot more readable, but this might be a more optimized way of writing this SQL query. Now let's go ahead and look at the recommended indexes. So it wants to create an index on the user orders. So just on user, let's see. It wants us to create an index on user ID, on the order ID and on the product ID. And that's just because that's what we're using for our joins. So that makes total sense. It's saying, let's make indexes on these joins so that we can do the joins more efficiently. All right, query 2.SQL. And I will again delete this so we can reuse it. In fact, actually, I'm going to say 2, like these are the 12 tricks, right? So that's 2. The next example is documenting complex code. I love using language models like this for documentation. So this is a Python example, so I'm going to paste it in here. And let's say I've written this code, it makes sense to me, makes no sense to anybody else. So I'll say document this code, docstring plus inline comments, not too much, and type hints. We will always want some type hints with Python. Let's see what it can do for us here. Nice. Now this is a little small. I'm just going to expand this so we can read this nicer. Great. So we have our user logins is now a list of strings. So that's a little, we can see what's going on. This will also help with linting tools. I'm having type hints like this. Our days is an integer. All right, we've got some arguments, what's going on here, what it returns, the range of values we expect to return. That's also great. And then just a few minimal inline code comments in this case, which is really cool. I could say add some, actually, no, this is pretty straightforward, right? Great, so that's it. I'm going to write this to 3. Okay, bring that in. The next example is to convert data transformation logic between languages. Okay, so one way you might develop a data engineering pipeline would be using pandas. So you might have code that looks like this. We have some sample data set, we're loading it into a data frame, and then we're doing some pandas transformations. And this might not work at all because your data might be enormously huge. For example, let's say load this as a CSV. So say you're reading this data.csv here, and it's really big, like enormously huge. This is never going to work for you. You'll need some distributed systems. That's what PySpark does. So I have some command here, and I'm going to just take this here and convert this to a PySpark data frame. And let's see how this looks, not data frame, but a PySpark script. So let's see how this works with PySpark. So it's got all of our imports right here. We're starting this Spark session. And this is like assuming, I guess, that the Spark session is maybe on your local computer. I'm going to say connect to a Spark server, because that would be more realistic. You'd have like a provider, some sort of remote system like this, where Spark would be running on some system. You'd go ahead and connect to that, configure it and whatnot, and then you could go ahead and run your stuff like on that distributed system. The next example is generating test cases for data pipelines. So let's say you have some transform function. This is what it's going to look like. We can have a look at it, and we're going to write a command to build some tests out for this function. So my goal is to now write some test cases for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write this out, and it's going to be called 5demo.py, because we're gonna need to read from this. So I've got this new file I just wrote. This is the one right here, and I want a new file which I'm going to call 5demotest.py like this. Okay, so now what I'll do is go to this new test file, and I'm just copying the same exact code from 5demo, and I'm going to run my prompt in here. So I sort of wrote it out here. Write PyTest cases for this function using example inputs and expected outputs. So I'll execute this here, and it's going to edit it in place. So it's going to replace this function like we've been seeing. But that makes sense because I'm in my testing file. This is the file whose purpose is to run tests. Okay, so we've got a bunch of tests right here, and we don't have this name defined, like transform data. So I'm going to have to import that. So in this case, I'll just say from 5demo import, and it was called transform. What was it called? Yeah, transform data. There it is. Oh, okay, right. It can't start with a number, so shoot, I'll have to call it demo number 5. Demo 5. Okay, so demo 5 is now going to work in here, and we're going to read this transform data. There it is. Okay, cool. So yeah, so this is my PyTest function. I'd actually like to try this out. So how can I run this? I can go into Avante. Actually, I'm going to open it up here, and I'm going to say how to run this. Let's see if it can tell me. And in order to run it, I'm just going to have to come down here. So this file is going to be right here. And if I look at star test, there's just this one test. So hopefully PyTest just goes ahead and picks this up. PyTest 5 test demo. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so Python 3.9 PyTest and collected 4 items, and 4 tests have been passed. Cool. So these tests were functional. The next example is around debugging code snippets. All right, so let's create some buggy code and see if we can go ahead and debug it. I'm going to sort of clean up what we have. I'll go to demo. We're going to get a blank slate from this. Get rid of Avante. Okay, cool. So we got a blank slate. We're ready to go. So let's put my buggy function, some example input. Let's see what we got here. So if I try and run this Python demo, let's see if that runs. It does seem to run. So what's going on? Assuming always has key value, name might not exist in all items. Okay, so name does not exist. I'm not actually calling it. So let's process the data. Right, so now I'm processing this data, which means I do not expect this to run. And sure enough, here is the error. There's the error we're getting. All right, let's see how we might go about debugging this with AI. So obviously I could fix this error, but let's say we expected there might be an error, or we get an error, and we just want to like throw AI at the problem. Find and fix any bugs in this function, including handling missing keys and invalid data. Let's see if we can do that. It's kind of strange. All right, so it's definitely provided me a pretty comprehensive solution. It's checking all these instances. I definitely wouldn't want to do anything this way, but let's see if it works. So yeah, okay, so there, it went ahead and ran. By the way, since we're in here, obviously there's a lot of different approaches, but you know, one approach you could just simply do is, you don't know if it's going to get the name or not, right? So you could just get the name, and if there is no name, you could say it's just an empty string. That'll have the effect of actually fixing this code, and certainly looks a lot cleaner that way. But we might want to actually look at the result too, right? So I could print that, and of course in this case we're getting this like empty string as one of the results, which we might not want. Interestingly, Bob is not in here. I don't know why Bob is not in here. Oh, Bob has less than 10. Weird. Okay, anyway. Hey guys, just a quick interruption to talk about my course, the AI Engineering Roadmap. I've got a whole section of this on data engineering, like inside the course, and I've got all sorts of stuff about what data engineers do, examples of the type of work we do, the data format, how encoding text works, like what is data, like in terms of a binary representation. And like this is just one lesson. There's like 100 lessons in this course. So when this launches, you can decide if this is a good investment for you, and in order to get on the waiting list, just to like hear about this course, like when it launches, you can go ahead and sign up for my newsletter, and I'll let you know when it comes out in February. I'll let you get back to the video and the darkness of Toronto at 5:30 p.m. in the winter. We're halfway there. This one is around generating schema migration scripts. So a common thing to do in data engineering is to change the structure of data. So in this example, it is SQL. So I'll go to my SQL example, and we're gonna say we have an existing table, and it's for users. And so we have an integer, we have a name, we have an email. So existing table schema, even though this is a create table function, I mean, this represents the schema. So I could also just sort of do it in this way, and I'll copy that and paste that down here. So this is what I'm working with right now. And then I want to apply some changes. I want to add a new column. I want to add a not null constraint and a unique constraint like this. And this is like I've written what I want to do, right? And actually how I would rather think about this is with a markdown file. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to create a new file here, and I'm going to call it demo.md, and we're going to paste this in here. And I'll say, I talked about this in a previous video, but I would consider this like a development log. And so what I've got is, this is actually kind of what I've got. I've got my existing changes, and then I want to apply these changes. So I'm just kind of writing down what I want to do for now. And how I would have done this, you know, a couple years ago or something is, well, I would just either know how to do it, or I'd look up how to do it, and then I'd check that how I've written it is correct. But how we can do this now is I can just say, write these SQL alter table statements, and I'll say, let's say I'm using MySQL. I don't know what database you'll need, but you can just throw that in. So we have an alter table, modify email. So okay, so it seems to be doing all of this in one step. That's pretty cool. I'm going to copy this and undo it, and just down here, I'll just throw it in. So SQL, and this is my SQL. So alter table, table name, add column, and modify email, and add a unique constraint. So we could do all of these things in one operation. So the next thing we can do is format large JSON or XML files. So let's say we have a really big unformatted file, and we want to format it. Okay, so let's say we've got this thing, and I'm gonna paste it. Let's say we got this thing like this. Now this is not a large file, but we might want to format this, and we could certainly do that, right? So I could just go format this JSON, and it'll go ahead and do that. But if it's a really big file, it's either not going to fit in the prompt size, or there's better ways of doing this. There's like more trusted ways of doing this sort of thing. So let's say I had a new file here, and I'm going to call it demo.json, and we're going to paste that in here. How could we format this file, this actual file itself? And I'm going to kind of cheat here. I'm going to go into my terminal here, and I have this LLM tool. I made a previous video on this one, so you can check that out if you want to see more examples of how to use this tool. But this uses ChatGPT, and I could say, give me a CLI command to format JSON, and see what it comes up with. So it's telling me to use JQ, and it says JQ dot your file, right, like this. So JQ dot demo.json, and like this. And there you go. So this is doing it without AI, but I use the AI to help me figure it out, right? So I could say demo formatted.json, and I know this was my 8th example, so I'll just paste that in there, and I can access that right like this. Cool. Summarizing logs or error messages. I really like the use case of getting AI tools to help us understand logs, because these things can be really messy. So let's say we have this example log file, and yep, you guessed it, I'm going to create a new file called demo.log, and we're going to grab that and paste this in. So here's our nasty log file, which we sort of are dealing with. So let's say I grab a bunch of this, and I'm going to bring it over into my demo markdown file like this, and I'm going to say log file sample. And let's paste this in. And by the way, this is how I actually work. So I like to create these markdown files and just do stuff in here. And so I would usually date them too, right? So 2025-01, it's the 4th today, I think. So say I wanted to do something with this file here. The first thing I'm gonna do is copy it, because it's gonna obliterate it when I run this. But I'm gonna say summarize this log file, tell me what errors and warnings I'm seeing. Sure. And this obviously wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to do this on a giant log file. You'd have to kind of parse it down, but they're just so messy to look at, right? So here's the log file sample. It was log, and I had that in here. And now this, I need to get rid of that. And this is my summary of the log file. So it's in a markdown format, and this should be rendering nicely for me. I could go ahead and use my markdown preview to look at this. So yeah, so it's saying there's this database connection, database timeout. I've got some more. Wow, there's a lot, lots of problems in this log file. Lots of problems, and you know what you could do too, right? You could kind of actually let's do a new helper window here, and I'm gonna say, yeah, write me a to-do list based on these errors. All right, so as you can see here, it's outputting a nice to-do list with markdown formatting. And I'm not sure if this is working great for me in terms of Avante. It doesn't look like it'll be able to insert these very nicely. It's kind of strange, but you can always just come here and yank them, come down to the bottom, and I'm gonna paste them in here. So if I come back to my nice preview, see I've got these little check boxes, right? And as I did them, what you do with Markdown is you'd replace this with a dash or something. Ooh, that's not working. It would be an X, I guess. What is it? Yeah, there you go. So that's a check. Done. And you can do, there's like Neovim ways actually of working with this too. So if I go clear, and what I want to do is go into my Neovim config, and I want to say check boxes, right? So I have like a little toggle checkboxes function. Toggle checkboxes right here. So leader TI. So let's see if I wanted to toggle this, you can tell I don't actually use it. There it is. All right, so leader TI, I could check that off. And I don't know if I have an uncheck. Doesn't look like. Oh, there you go. So leader TI can uncheck it as well. That's cool. Nice. All right, that was pretty fun. We've got 2 examples left, and this one is to explain complex SQL. So complicated SQL, it comes with the territory when it comes to any sort of data work, and all data jobs are going to use a lot of SQL. So let's paste this query in and have a look at it. Now this is actually not that complicated. Yeah, make this way more complicated. Yeah. We want to see something. We want to see something real here. And so now I have a command ready to explain this. So explain the SQL in plain language, blah, blah, blah. And you probably know. Look at that. It really did it. Oh, yeah. It really did it. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to say, let's select all of this. And I'm going to say, I'll paste that in here. So explain this SQL in plain language, keep it short, and then, you know, include explanation as comment. Yeah, along with original code, use inline comments as well. This could be really helpful for purposes of documentation, like rather than using a language model online where the history is like constrained to this like URL, which you could like, sure, you could go back to that URL, right? But this way you can just keep everything in your terminal and sort of log this in a markdown file or as code, right? This is all inline. And yeah, okay, so here's the sort of what's going on with this query. The inline stuff might be a little much, you know, and that's where these AI tools can help as well, because if you decide it's too much, you can say, yeah, okay, well, like remove inline except most important comments. God, you can tell it's late. It's getting dark. The spelling going way downhill. But the language model doesn't care, and it did seem to keep the most important comment in here. The next example is around automatically cleaning data sets. So I've got a data set here, and we're going to talk about how we might want to clean this. So let me copy this, and we're going to create a new file called demo.csv. Okay, let's grab that, and this is what our CSV file looks like. And you can't really tell, but there is some messy stuff going on here. But actually, this is just one line, so that's not going to work for us. What I might need to do is go over and actually grab that itself. So this is where I'm feeding the, here we go. This is the actual data itself. So let me grab that, and we're going to come over here and paste that in. Nice. Okay, so now these are actually new lines, and you can see there's some funky stuff like age for name, for example. Like there's no name here, and some of this age is ABC. So some of this is kind of messy. So we're gonna try and write some code to clean this up. This is a really like common task, you know, with Python. So we've got this demo.csv, and what I might want to do is I'm gonna just look at the head of this file. So there it is, right? And I can put it into my clipboard with pb copy like this. So now I have this in my clipboard, because you're not going to feed the entire CSV file into a language model. You'll just feed part of it like into that language model, right? So let's say I have this file where it's like, okay, it's you know, whatever day it is, and I'm going to say like cleaning up this CSV. And let's paste it in. Okay, so this is the head of the CSV. I'm going to get this big for us again. And this is done. I don't know. Maybe the PB copy didn't work. What's going on here? Did it? Okay, there you go. Weird. All right, so this is This is my CSV file. All right, nice. So yeah, I want to clean this up. Now I have some sort of command for that. So write Python code to clean this data set, handling missing and incorrect values according to specific requirements. So I want to do that here. I'm going to paste this in here. Incorrect values handling. Sorry, I don't know what that is all about. So I'm gonna remove that part. So it just says write Python code to clean this data set, handling missing and incorrect values. And I'm gonna say write as Python code snippet in this markdown below CSV block. This just should, hopefully it'll just keep this, it'll re-output this, because that's how this editing is working. Like the language model is taking it and putting it through the pipes and outputting something new. So effectively, like Claude just rewrote this for me, and then it just cranked this out right below. And look how much work has been automated for us. Like, it's just incredible, right? It's checking for valid emails. It's got this email regular expression, which you would have had to dig out of some Stack Overflow thread or something like that. Not to mention other, I guess, kind of stuff. I will stress, though, that like it's something you want to look at line by line, because it'll just do things that, might not make any sense, like coercing errors here. You're going to be actually removing a lot of dates from your data when you do that. And look at this. Now they're just forward filling dates. I mean, they're just assuming that's okay to do. So especially when it comes to data, looking line by line is really important here. Okay, so here we are at the last example, and this one's super cool. So when we're passing data to a language model, like with programming, say we're taking some user input and we're going to generate some language model output based on that. We have to be careful about that we're not feeding something into the language model that's inappropriate. So here I'm going to build a Python function to validate and sanitize some user input before passing it into an LLM. So let's start actually by, I'm going to just go ahead and say, create a basic like chat GPT function, that calls chat GPT. All right, whatever. What a prompt. Like, what is that? That is just beautiful. That's just so beautiful. All right, so let's start here, and I'm going to come down. My Avante is behaving real weird, but that don't matter. Whoa, I can come over and paste that in like that. Okay, let's get out of here. Good Lord. Good God. Okay, here we go. So I have this function, chat with GPT, and we're gonna, great. So this will talk with chat GPT for us, and this is ready to go. But let's say we want to take some user input. So I'm gonna say take user input, and I'm assuming it'll just, yep, okay, so prompt is input. It's definitely not behaving well. All right, so this prompt is gonna go right in, right? But what we wanna do is sanitize this. So I'm gonna say sanitize and validate, and we're gonna put the prompt in here, and we're gonna get the prompt out, and I'll call it, let's call it validated prompt. And then validated prompt comes in the other end. Great, now this has not been defined, so we're gonna have to create this, and let's just do it at the top of our file. So it's easy. Prompt is coming in, it's a string, we're outputting another string, and then in here is where I'm gonna put the requirements. So this is pretty ugly, but I'm just gonna do it like this, and it'll clean everything up for us when I run this prompt. So what I wanna do is create this function. So I'm saying, create a Python code to validate and sanitize this data before passing it to an LLM given requirements. And I'll say Python function instead of a code. And the last thing I want to say is rewrite the doc string. Obviously, I don't want this to be the doc string, but this is a way of getting that context in. And you see how flexible we can be with writing code, with working with these, and I just truly love it. So it seems to have implemented what we want. For example, it's removing some white spaces, checking length restrictions, null bytes, and removing these control characters. That's cool and all. One thing we might want to say is remove let's say filter out swear words. Let's see if it can even do that. Implement this. Implement this. Oh wow, it really wrote it out. It really wrote out these swear words. I'm like pretty surprised it returned those to me. But it knew it was It knew it was for the sake of good. It knew it was for the sake of good. That's funny. All right, I'm going to remove some of these because, yeah, I don't want to, oh man, I don't want to commit those to my repository. Okay, cool. So that's good. I'm happy with this. And that's our demonstration. And that's it. That is it. That is all of the ideas I have to share with you today. If you like this, please let me know by subscribing and giving me a thumbs up. And I've got tons of similar style videos that you can watch, and I'll link some of them at the end of this one. You'll notice that I have receded to my light source because it's got quite dark through the course of filming this video. I'd love to hear what you want me to create in 2025. My focus is around AI engineering, so anything in that space that you can think of, please let me know so that I know what to prioritize for this year. I'm really focused on RAG and agents. I think those are two of the biggest topics in AI engineering that I want to focus on. I want to learn more about them myself, and I want to teach you about them as well. Thank you for watching, and namaste.